Hello everybody. Sorry I've been missing for so long. As you probably know, January is a slow month for content in general, but especially movie releases, so there hasn't been much of anything to cover besides rom-coms and shitty action slop. I thought the whole month would pass without my first flick, and yet the gods graced me with Iron Lung, a movie that has been in development for who knows how long. Iron Lung is a film adaptation of a video game created by Mark Fishbach, also known as Markiplier, the red hair guy from the era where every YouTuber color-coded their hair for some reason. He's the newest in a long line of YouTubers who are rich enough to just decide they know how to make a movie. From this group, we've seen success stories like the recent Raka Raka movies, and also horrors beyond human comprehension. So which side does Iron Lung fall on? Well, we'll have to see. For my part, I've never played the game, and I know essentially nothing about it, meaning I'll be going in blind and taking the movie purely for what it is. Let's find out what this scary game has in store for us. Let's kick things off with the film's greatest characteristic, the visuals. Mark put himself in the director's chair for this, and he came through with a nail-biting, claustrophobic shot style. I really enjoy all the times when the camera suddenly cuts to a close-up of only the main character Simon's eyes, and the glassy technology was certainly a vibe as well. On the effects side, it's pretty great also. There are moments when we devolve a bit into the territory of Stranger Things gray goo, but those are often followed by grueling bright red scenery that refuses to hold back. One of the coolest scenes by far is when Simon has a hallucination of his ship ripping apart and him coming face to face with the movie's oft-unseen monster. It straight up looks satanic and otherworldly, which is exactly what I had hoped for. By the end, the makeup becomes gruesome enough to make me recoil, yet it was more bone-chilling than gratuitous. In relation, the editing made the movie all the more immersive. While the music typically wasn't anything to write home about for me, the moments in which it syncs up so perfectly to the rapidly cutting shots got me excited for sure, and it always seems to cut to Simon's little communication device on the ship's ceiling at the perfect time, like when there's blood dripping down or electricity buzzing. Those comments unfortunately do lead me to my first and biggest negative though, which is the pace. At the beginning of the film, Simon is instantly sent down to find information about this monster by, the military, kinda. Literally the first scene is him in the ship heading down to where the monster resides in this sick-ass blood pool. He then spends the next hour and 20 minutes or so just dicking around and falling over. I'm not saying these parts aren't intense, because they definitely are for the most part, but the fact that it takes him this long to even meet the antagonist of the movie is pretty insane. There's more turbulence in this movie than there are evil creatures, and there's also only one setting. I understand that the rest of this underworld place is basically just a blood ocean, but I was ready for Simon to leave the ship about 40 minutes in, and there are certainly ways they could have had him escape into some cave, or one of the other abandoned ships we discover are down there. During all this time, we learn some about Simon's backstory, to mixed results. It's nice to know who this guy is, because plenty of video game movies fall into the trap of making a blank slate of a main character, though it's hard to latch on to anything we're told about him because it's also distant from what we're watching. I don't particularly care about Simon's friends or the explosion he caused at some facility, because I haven't seen literally anything besides this ship for the entire movie. It's kind of hilarious when they make him out to be this butcher with nerves of steel and no morals, because he just gets beat up and cries most of the time that we see him. He doesn't need to be some tough guy, but they're telling us he is, and it's just not coming off as believable. At this point, we may as well talk about Simon, or rather the man behind him, Mark, and how his performance is. The biggest hurdle Mark had to overcome with this acting job was making me forget for a second that the dude that I was looking at was Markiplier from video games, and unfortunately they instantly fucked that by crediting him as Markiplier. I really thought they would credit him as Mark Fishbach for a project taking this seriously, but whatever. At the beginning, I wasn't really feeling Mark that much. He was doing well for a YouTuber, yet for an actual actor, he was a little too faux emotional in my books, especially when all he had experienced was a cut on his forehead and he was already losing his mind. However, as time passed, I began to respect Mark's portrayal of desperation and anger at being denied his humanity. After he has that horrific experience of hallucinating the monster and being covered in blood, his grief becomes much more real for both himself and for the viewer, as things get darker and darker. His devotion becomes real too, as he jumps into disgustingly thick pools of blood to the point of being unrecognizable. Say what you want about Mark's performance, but you can't say he wasn't trying. So, Mark did a good directing job and a good acting job, though I think he fell short of the triad with the writing. The writing most certainly isn't bad, but from the beginning the dialogue was something I noted to be weak. There's simply too many recycled lines, such as, "You're not listening to me," or "I'm just a cog in the machine," that feel like they could be from any movie. At one point, Ava, Simon's superior, has a line where she says, "This is bigger than me," and in my mind I was thinking, she's gonna say, "This is bigger than you" next, and then she did. Add to that the aforementioned issues of unconvincing lore drops and characterization, and the script issues pile up. Again, the writing isn't bad. For one thing, it's pretty funny. I love this moment when Simon is trying to guess the password to unlock the files of the abandoned ship nearby, and he attempts to just say password, and then after that his next guess is just password 1. That got a chuckle out of me. All I'm saying is that there are too many drawbacks in the screenplay for me to not address it. This lands us at the final act, where the movie very much heats up. We kick off with another one of my favorite scenes of the film, where Ava finally gets in contact with Simon after having lost his signal for days, and he's able to angrily insist that she comes to save him after revealing the information he's found. Listening to the two of them piece together a plan for success was exhilarating, and Ava's actress, Carolyn Rose Kaplan, made her shock and glimmer of hope tangible during this scene. What follows is Simon's mind-fucking bloody attempt to return his gathered information to his hirers, and eventually to preserve it by any means necessary. I'll say, despite the fact that this single setting doesn't work all the way for me, the crew did a fantastic job of making this final sequence look like a completely different location, with the surrounding metal, the gritty lighting, and the gallons and gallons of blood everywhere. This sequence is absolutely raw and unapologetically grotesque, carrying the most emotional stakes of the film, because the last chunk does do a good job of making me care about Simon, and seeing him get his arm ripped off was heartbreaking, as that's the moment you know he's not going to make it. The only criticism I can give this ending is that it is fairly abrupt, since the only falling action you get before a cut to credits is the confirmation that Simon's information on the creature in the underground survived. It's a nice, fitting ending, though it would have been good to get some more time to sit with what happened before I got the name Markiplier popping up on my screen for the second time. So that's my thoughts on Iron Lung, my first movie of the new year. It's a surprisingly slow film with quite a few writing flaws, but is very enjoyable due to its memorable visual style, passionate performances, and wild conclusion. I've landed on a strong 6 out of 10 for Iron Lung. It isn't the highest praise, yet there are parts of this movie that genuinely made an impression on me, and I can safely say that Markiplier is one of the success stories of the content creators turned filmmakers gang. This is a film that deserves to be watched even if you have no idea who the guy is, and not a lot of YouTubers can achieve that. I am interested to see if he continues to direct, because he clearly has an eye for visuals, and I wouldn't want this to be his only shot at a big budget flick. Anyways, thank you for watching this review, and I'll see you whenever the next one comes out. I'm sure I'll find something to tide me over until Invincible Season 4 releases and I get more video fuel. Bye now.